You're 18 years old. You can't buy beer. You can't buy wine. You can't buy liquor. You can buy a weapon of war.
My take is we all win if we don't watch the vice presidential debate, which is a huge snooze fest.
Welcome to the Fourcast, where four frum pundits talk politics. Meet the all-star lineup.
I'm Benjamin Rose, Mishpacha magazine editor-at-large.
I'm Maury Litwack, Teach Coalition CEO and political insider.
I'm Stu Loser, longtime Democratic communications strategist.
And I'm Eli Steinberg, conservative commentator.
Okay, so let's get down to politics.
Greetings to all of our listeners and welcome to another edition of Fourcast. I'm Benjamin Rose, and on today's program we will ask and hopefully answer the following question. Will the 2024 presidential election be decided by a ballot or by a bullet? Gentlemen, which way will it go?
Look, like Kamala Harris, any form of violence in politics is wrong, abhorrent, should be stopped. I'm glad that she called him yesterday, had a civil and decent and short conversation with him saying this is wrong. I'm glad because that's a great first conversation, and I'm glad because there's going to be a second conversation, I hope. One that says crazy people should not be having access to guns. And we all agree on this. 90-something% of Americans, 85% of gun owners believe that crazy people who have demonstrated that they are not really well, young people, should not have access to guns. And perhaps we should have some limits on the kind of guns you can access. You're 18 years old, you can't buy beer, you can't buy wine, you can't buy liquor, you can buy a weapon of war. That's a reality that most Americans agree with, have agreed with for decades. Hopefully, that's where we can head for.
Kamala Harris said at the debate that she and Tim Walz were gun owners and she wasn't going to take anyone's guns away from them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but then she quickly walked that one back during the week when she said that she's definitely, the mandatory buyback of assault weapons, she's definitely going to continue to be in favor of, which isn't so much, I know that there's this kind of desire to make this about a gun control issue, which it's new. And we could have the gun control debate a different time. And Stu, you'd probably be surprised. My feelings about guns are probably closer to yours. However, my feelings about the Second Amendment are more in the rights sphere. That's not a debate to be had right now. The real point over here is that the desire to sort of distract, that's an overt effort to distract from the fact that this is the second time in 2 months that somebody has come to take a shot at Trump. And this isn't something that we've seen happen before, in our lifetimes, in the context of a presidential campaign. What does that tell us?
That's not right. 8 years ago, August of 2016, when Trump was running against Hillary Clinton, he went and said in, I think, Pennsylvania, Hillary Clinton wants to appoint new people to the Supreme Court. True. Those people want to limit your guns. True. And if she's elected, there's nothing you can do about it unless the Second Amendment people have something to do with it. And his staff, about walking back, said, oh, he's joking. He said, I wasn't joking. He was calling on gun owners to take up arms and assassinate Hillary Clinton, or at least do damage to her, to prevent her from taking away guns, prevent her from appointing Supreme Court justices who we disagree with. You're right. This has not been seen forever, but it is not new. It is something that, in fact, started 8 years ago when Donald Trump started running for president.
No, so I'm very
that's
glad.
True, but also in the last few months, Biden himself called Trump an existential threat. And he said we need to put Donald Trump in a bullseye. And then he tried
Donald
to Trump
called it vermin. Not the same to say one is an existential threat and one is vermin.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
To call someone vermin is not nice. To call someone an existential threat and say we need to put Donald Trump in a bullseye and then try to wiggle out of it like he did in an interview with Lester Holt when Biden was finally lucid enough for a moment to say that he meant not to actually put him in a bullseye, but to focus on what he's doing.
For the sake of moving this conversation along, I promise you, Benjamin, I will never vote for Donald Trump ever again. I mean, I will never vote for Joe Biden ever again in my life. I only voted for him once. I will never vote for him again.
Maury Litwack, to you now. The ballot or the bullet?
I just think that there's two things that are just extremely sad going on. Number one is that it is extraordinarily sad and depressing that a presidential candidate has had not one but 2 assassination attempts, which had never happened before in American history. So that is extraordinarily sad. It's sad that we've had so many elected officials be targeted for attack. That's extremely sad. That is a crisis in itself. But it's also extraordinarily sad that in less than 5 hours afterwards, 6 hours afterwards, the Democratic Party is talking about gun control, and the Republican Party is figuring out who to blame for it on the political rhetoric side. This is a level of dysfunction in politics which I don't think we've ever seen before. So it is, if you're asking me how will it impact the elections, unfortunately, it's another crisis and a thing that actually everyone agrees on from a bipartisan perspective that has to be dealt with, which we're just going to sort of skate over and everybody's going to retreat to their camps.
Come on. The guns are the problem, not reasonable gun owners who could pass a gun check, could say, you want a gun? Okay, we're going to check. We're going to make sure you don't have warrants against you. We're going to make sure you don't have a violent history. You haven't done something like go off to a war that you're not part of to see if you maybe can go around killing people. That's reasonable. When you and I were kids, we had something called lawn darts. They were sharp darts that we threw in the yard to each other, and lo and behold, they started injuring kids because you shouldn't throw sharp darts as a lawn toy for kids. They don't have them anymore. They got rid of them really quickly. When you have a dangerous product that keeps on being misused and doesn't really have a use, then of course it's appropriate to start.
Stu, but that piece of it is, you're right. They had lawn darts and they had to remove them. And I agree that the whole gun control debate is part of this discussion. But at the end of the day, all of our parents growing up said, hey, let me tell you the story of lawn darts, why you shouldn't do something dumb, because there's fear. And we know that fear drives people to the polls. And if you scare people, it drives people to the polls. And perhaps it does more than just drive people to polls. It creates a very dangerous rhetoric in America that we're seeing on both sides. So I just think that to bottle it up and do just gun control on this thing is a simplifying issue that's much larger and broader that is happening in America.
So let's talk about jailing our political opponents. Let's talk about how they're calling our opponents evil as opposed to a slightly less bad word. Ellie?
No, let's do this because, Stu, I know that the kind of move from the Democratic side is to make this about something. Generally, one of the things that frustrates me about politics, that everybody wants to make it about something that's not under their control. It's always something that they can blame somebody else because that sort of absolves them of the responsibility to do anything in their own house. And this is across the board. But the idea that this is a gun control issue, and that's the issue, like Maury's saying, we should be talking about the day after, is ludicrous. Nothing changed on the gun control end over the last 8 years. That didn't change. More guns didn't become, in the last 4 to 8 years, more guns didn't become legal. They didn't become more legal for crazy people to get guns, like you're saying, Stu. So it can't be that we will say, oh, this constant is responsible for the thing that changed. No, it's not that. But what did change very much, and this is true, and again, this is where I'm going to push back on you, because you see how much our dear friends in the media are trying to push back on this idea, because again, it comes to culpability. What did change is the apocalyptic framing that people on the left and in the media talk about Trump, which wasn't true about previous presidential candidates.
And it isn't true in a way different than any other politician.
Absolutely. There's been rhetoric in presidential campaigns for as long as anyone's been alive.
No,
and people
but
have
Bob
said
Dole
things about
says, I
Kemp.
disagree with Bill Clinton. I think he's a decent man. John McCain shuts down a heckler.
That's what John McCain does. Let's talk about what the Obama people said about Romney, right? Romney was dangerous. Romney was going to roll back the rights of women. Romney was going to gut the middle class. Romney had binders full of women, and now he's great, right? Because he hasn't committed to voting for Trump.
Romney had binders full of women. That wasn't us. That was the guy who had a private equity company that started or saved Staples, and he's like off there saying, I got binders full of women. You should go to Staples. There's one behind me at 43rd and 3rd. They got a great sale on binders. By the way, what were we talking about in the presidential debate? And
no, that's it. Stu, that's not. Stu, this is the same thing like saying that J.D. Vance said that he makes up stories as saying that Romney said, I have binders full of women. Romney said that I have binders full of resumes of women.
I think it is meaningful and relevant that J.D. Vance, when trying to get elected, said, I want to cut back on the government agencies in charge of guns. I want to eliminate the ATF, which is something he had to say. This is his 2022, just 2 years ago, I think. 2022 federal candidate survey for the American Firearms Association, American Gun Association. It's relevant. Let's move beyond gun control.
Of course it's relevant, but it's not about this assassination attempt.
Okay,
then
let's talk about which candidate says that his opponents are vermin. Which candidate says that his opponents are crazy, evil people?
Which candidates are saying that people are existentially challenging to people's future? Yes, nobody's going to come on here and defend the sort of over-the-top rhetoric that Trump uses. That's not what we're here for.
You're doing
No,
it. You're doing a
I'm
good
not.
job.
You didn't hear me defend him calling anybody anything. What I'm saying is it's very different in the realm of inciting violence. When you tell people, if this guy gets elected, it is the end of democracy as we know it.
Let's give Binyamin the last word because we gotta go right into the lightning round. So
Right.
Binyamin, what do you got for us?
Gentlemen, just let me add, firstly, I'm very impressed with the turns this conversation took because not only did we talk about the election and fair speech and how people should behave with their political opponents, but we also got into gun control and brought in some historical context. So if we're going to bring in some historical context, I need to bring in one thing which has been recirculating, a viral clip of a 2018 interview that Kamala Harris gave when she was still a senator to Ellen DeGeneres. And when she asked Senator Harris if she was stuck in an elevator with either President Trump, Vice President Mike Pence, or Jeff Sessions, who then was Attorney General, which one would she rather be stuck with? So Harris answered, does one of them have to come out alive?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. I mean, like, that is actually, this is weak.
I'm gonna say it's a very a joke in very poor taste, but I put much less stock in that than I put into Tim Walz saying on this very campaign that Trump and Republicans are a threat to democracy, and the quote, are they going to put people's lives in danger? Yes. I think
Donald
that's
Trump says
much...
he's going to round up his political opponents and jail them. He's going to prosecute Democrats for the crime of being Democrat.
And what
Really
exactly
troubling language.
All right, gentlemen,
warfare that's going on in your great state of New York?
We have a.
We're going to come back to that, but
we can all agree. Look, I think we can all agree that we have earthquakes and tremors every week in the political ecosphere, which is a great transition for us in terms of how quick can Binyamin Rose, Stu Lozer, Ellie Steinberg, and I myself as well, how quick can we give you political insights? And this is our lightning round. So we're going to go through 5 questions in 5 minutes, and here we go. Number one,
just for audience, Ellie, I know Kamala Harris didn't get the questions in advance. I know I didn't get the questions in advance. You and Maury kind of, you both live in the same state. You both sort of were more Republican.
No,
Did you in advance?
Look, even though I don't know what Maury's position is on the great Central Jersey debate, I live in Central Jersey and Maury lives in North Jersey.
You live in South Jersey. There's no such thing as Central Jersey.
Anyway, let's go quickly and see how many we can get through in 5 minutes. Number one is which swing state will shock the world? We got Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Arizona. What will shock the world and make this or break this election? Ellie, go first.
My gut tells me that North Carolina will be more of a kind swingy, and people will have less confidence in what's going on there than even Pennsylvania.
Perfect. Stu.
None of what you said, Maury, actually, and not what Ellie said. Iowa poll came out this week. Joe Biden was down 18% last time they polled. Now Kamala Harris is down 4%, and that was before the debate. Kamala Harris, is going to overperform Iowa. If you have the Electoral College votes from Iowa, it becomes almost mathematically impossible. But it doesn't matter because there's also credible statewide polls poll in Texas that shows Kamala Harris is behind 4 in Texas. So none of these swing states the shock will be that when none of these swing states matter and we're fighting over massive Republican states like Texas and Florida.
Binyamin.
Pennsylvania will be the big state, the big prize in this election. Whoever wins Pennsylvania wins the election.
I'm with Binyamin. I think it all comes down to Pennsylvania more and more. We're going to see. Who needs the vice presidential debate more, Vance or Walz? Stu, go first.
J.D. Vance, virtually every time he's opened his mouth in this election, has put his foot in it or put some dog or cat's foot in it, some imaginary dog or cat's foot in it. The bar for him is to not go out and say something that is not true, not offensive, or crazy. So he needs that more. Tim Walz, great guy, nice coach. I follow a lot of his advice.
Ellie.
Yeah, definitely. This time I'm going to agree with Stu that Vance needs it more than Walz does, but for a different reason. I think anytime anyone listens to anything that Vance has to say that isn't chopped up or misrepresented, you can understand what he's saying, and he speaks clearly. So I think it's going to be a very big opportunity for Vance to kind of show all the people in the country that the caricature that's being made of him by the media and by the left is indeed not true.
Binyamin.
I think Vance needs the win more. The reason why is because the media is biased towards the Democrats, and whatever Tim Walz says will end up getting lots of rounds of applause by the talking heads. And Vance is the one who really has to overcome that in order to make the positive impression. So I would say that he's got the most to prove. But I'd also say Vance is far more intellectual than Tim Walz. And if he can keep the debate issues-oriented without going off into all sorts of side tangents like Stu mentioned, then I think he has a good chance of outperforming Walz.
That is true.
Yeah,
And
he
the
does speak
intellectual
English.
always wins. You can ask President Adlai Stevenson. You can ask President Walter Mondale. The intellectual always wins in America.
My take is we all win if we don't watch the vice presidential debate, which is a huge snooze fest. If election is held today, who wins the House? Who wins the House, Binyamin? Who wins the House?
The Republicans. Barely.
Democrats, absolutely. And the proof, don't take my word for it. Don't take Donald Trump's word for it, because Donald Trump is a pathological liar and an attacker. But he's in Nassau County. He's in the 4th Congressional District, the 5 towns, significantly from community, trying to shore up a strong Republican seat in a strong Republican county in New York, which is not in any way, shape, or form a swing state. He's doing this because the Republicans could lose the House.
Ellie.
If the election were to be held today, most people wouldn't go vote because they think the election's going to happen in November. But joking aside, if the election were held today, I think that the Republicans would win, with a narrow majority. I do think that what Stu's talking about is an interesting data point, that Trump actually seems to be putting more effort into winning congressional seats than the Harris campaign in going to New York and places like that, and not just sticking to his own swing states.
I got 2 more questions to go on. This one I'm looking for a one-word answer. Who wins the Senate? Binyamin.
Republicans, much easier than winning the House.
Stu.
Dems, agree. It's hard for the Democrats to win, but they will.
Ellie.
Republicans, Montana, yada, yada.
I think I forgot to give my House. I think the Republicans win the House. I think the Senate stays Democratic. I think the Democrats are going to keep the Montana in a shock. Biggest issue, economy, immigration, or abortion? Which plays the biggest role in these elections in the next 45 days or so that we have? Ellie.
To quote a great, now moderate Democratic president, it's the economy, stupid.
You're not wrong, Ellie, but abortion gets people who don't normally vote and don't always vote out to vote. When you have new voters who are coming out to vote on an issue, very strong. Abortion matters more.
Binyamin.
I'm going to make sure that the 3 of us have different opinions on this. I'll say immigration only from the viewpoint that it's the issue that Trump and Vance keep bringing up. It's the issue that they keep getting attacked on by the liberal mainstream media. And that's the one that is in the news, and that's what a lot of people are going to go to the polls and decide on, especially in states like Texas, Arizona, etc.
I think it's immigration because Arizona has a ballot literally on that's make or break. So you're voting on immigration in there, and I think it still had some sticking points from the debate as well. So that's what I think is the immigration. Now, gentlemen, since we've gone through the lightning round and we survived, we now need your big, bold prediction. What's your big, bold prediction of what you think is going to happen next week, because we will be back with listeners shortly. So what do you think is going to happen that people have to sort of see or pay attention to? What is your big, bold prediction? We will go with Binyamin first.
You're putting me on the spot, huh?
Fearless forecast. Your fearless forecast.
Hey.
Let's go.
In the next week, we'll probably see the report that's due to come out on the first assassination attempt against Trump. And as Senator Blumenthal, a Democrat, already said, it's going to shock a lot of people. So I think we're going to have some shock waves when it comes to the assassination front in the next week.
I think that for all the noise about whether or not there are dogs and cats being eaten in Ohio, which there aren't, the Trump team is going to take away the lesson of, we actually got away with it. We said these people are killing something in order to eat something, which is an old familiar kind of libel that we know very well. The lesson that they had is that they should do more of this, so they're going to get even crazier.
Here's what I know. I was raised a middle-class kid, and that's all I know. No, that's the Kamala Harris answer to the prediction. But the Fed will cut interest rates, Trump will tweet something about it, and Trump will also get the pastrami sandwich when he goes to visit Gottlieb's tomorrow.
Yes, that's a whole nother. That's 10 minutes of discussion right there. My fearless forecast is, and I tend to add a little bit to what Ellie's saying with the reverse, which is I think the Feds look like they're going to cut the rates. I think that the Biden-Harris team come out unbelievably on that and spend time messaging on that, and her polling continues to go. From last week to this week, I haven't seen much that indicates to me that she's losing. We'll see what happens next week.
That wraps it up for today's session. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed and also learned something. You agree with us? You disagree? Have your own opinions? Let us know. Write us at podcasts@mishpacha.com.